All right, so do you see it recording anywhere? Okay, I see a little indicator. Cool, great. So I'm just gonna let that run. Yeah, cool. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. We're up at the crack of noon here doing the first event of the day. Just while we're waiting, what other locals do we have, or what locals do we have represented, I should say?
I'm a retired nurse from Temple University Hospital, Patty McFarland.
Cool.
I'm from Temple Top.
Great. Very cool. All right, so all right, cool. All righty. Final countdown here. Started. Cool. So I kind of figure we should just go ahead and get started right away with the introductions, and then people can file in for the content as the minutes go on. So my name is David Thompson. I'm the membership coordinator for PASNAP. I've worked at PASNAP for, it'll be 3 years in May. And I also have done work to set up other organizations in Philly, the Philly Tenants Union and Philly Workers for Dignity. And so some of that experience will inform today's presentation, and also some great research that we were able to find about effective union orientations. But that's me. So I'll kick it over to you, Julia.
Hey guys, good afternoon. My name's Julia and I am an emergency room nurse. I've been at Einstein for about 4 years and nurse for about 8 years. I'm currently the membership chair at ENU, Einstein Nurses United, which is our local. And I've been in the role of doing the new membership hires for about a year. I really want to hear about how things are going for you guys. The goal of this is to learn and improve. So I would like to hear actually some of the challenges that you're having on, or some things you'd like to work on with the new hire orientation. And I want this to be open, and so if you want to drop any questions in the chat, myself and David are available for whatever you've got.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to kind of start us off, just to set the ground before we jump into the content, are there some big challenges or successes that you want to share right at the start here that you've had doing new member orientations, keeping track of your cards, all that kind of stuff? And if not, that is okay. Okay, cool. Well, then we'll just jump right in. So today we are going to be trying to hit on a couple different things. Mainly, we're going to be covering how you can run a successful new member orientation, but we're also going to be talking about some tips and strategies for onboarding new members. And we're going to be talking about how you can build your capacity to run these orientations and sign up and engage new hires. And we're going to be covering what is going to be included in the new member packet that's going out to all the locals. But just to step back for a second, why do orientations even matter, right? It might be self-evident to you, but there's also been some great quantitative research done by this guy, Michael Wasser, and he ran the numbers and found that good informative orientations lead to more engaged union members. It's borne out in the research. And a bad orientation on the flip side can lead to apathy in your new hires. I don't want to scare anybody by saying that. If you're engaged and you care, you're probably doing a good job. But a lot of unions might not even, get orientations done in the first place. And many unions might do it in a very kind of pro forma way, just passing out the forms and listlessly going through the motions. But we do know that it's important to run a good informative orientation. So that's why we're taking the time to go over this, and we're going to be putting the time in, in the coming year to help everybody build their capacity to do that. And just so you know, this presentation, you can download it and you can download the full packet of stuff that this guy, Michael Wasser, wrote on the website. And there's also a more simplified version with the kind of the key tips for the orientations. So yeah, we're starting out with running a successful orientation, and I'll kick it over to Julia.
There we are. Okay, so we broke this training down into a couple of steps to kind of go chunk by chunk. I know even kind of hearing like, oh, a bad orientation could be a detriment to your local. That could sound a little bit overwhelming, but I really want to drill that this is a positive experience. It's a huge organizing opportunity that you have. You get to set the tone. You're the first people that your members are going to hear from in the hospital. I have my orientation right at the beginning of the hospital orientation, right at 8 a.m. So I'm literally one of the first people that they actually get to hear from. I found it to be one of the most fun parts of being an executive board member. I have a really energetic format. It's also fairly casual, so I can fine tune it to whatever the group is. And I always think of it that it's the time to really hype up our union. So we have a couple steps that I tend to follow. First one, I always like to do some icebreakers, go around and say, hey, good morning. What's your name? What unit are you going to be on? And if you're a new nurse. In my orientations, I don't hand out any materials yet. I noticed that people will start flipping through them, and I want to really keep it a conversation at first. I'll try to find little ways to make connections with people. I'm an ER nurse, so everyone's like, oh, yeah, ER, I'll be sending you patients, okay, please just pick up the phone for a report, but just try to make a connection because we're building a relationship, we're building this organizing. And then after that, I will go and pitch it to the whole group and say, so what's a union, guys? And that starts to get the conversation rolling.
So once you've started to get some input from the new hires and you've made a little bit of a connection, that's your first step. The next step is to introduce PASNAP. Most new hires have never been in a union before, so they're starting from scratch. So we want to lay out some basic principles of this organization. So before we get into what we suggest that you hit when you do that, we want to ask you all, what do you think makes PASNAP unique as an organization compared to other unions? And yeah, well, it's open to anybody. I know we had somebody from TAP on board here. We had somebody. I see, Femi, is that a hand or no?
Oh, there's a hand.
Yeah, you're welcome to just go ahead.
I mean,
Patty,
just
go for it.
that members
Yeah.
really have an opportunity to get involved if they want to get involved, whether it's, bargaining or, becoming a rep or, getting involved in political action. If you're kind of gung ho about, wanting to get involved, then there's always going to be a place for you. And that's not always true with other unions. So yeah, that's that's one thing I would say.
Absolutely. Patty, did I see you trying to?
Yeah, I think what makes PASNAP unique is, and unions in general are job security and job fairness, but we also want to make sure our patients get the best care that they possibly deserve.
Mhm.
So it's really twofold. It's us and it's our patients also.
Absolutely. And anybody else? Cool. So yeah, those are some great answers, and those are some important things that they might be obvious to you, but to your new hires, everything is new, right? So exactly that we want to convey to new hires that PASNAP is their voice. It's how you all can advocate for your patients and for yourselves. And like Matthew is saying, we want to make it clear that PASNAP is theirs. It's an independent union. It's inclusive. It's member run, and it's member driven. And that means it relies on active members getting involved. And we also want to make clear that PASNAP can be a source for healthcare workers' professional development and a source for mentoring and support. A lot of new hires might see management or their employer as that source initially, and we want to make sure that they know PASNAP is there for them to fulfill those needs. It's also good to mention that, PASNAP is growing all the time, that it's an open democratic union, and that makes it so you can really make it what you want it to be. So if you've made a little bit of connection with your new hires, and then you've talked about some of these big picture principles, you want to quickly make it concrete or give an example of that. And a way to do that is to mention a particular PASNAP victory you're proud of at your shop. So is there anything that you can think of that you are proud of that PASNAP has achieved in a contract fight or changed at your workplace versus other places you've worked at?
Guys, don't be shy. It's Julia from Einstein. And this is really what it's kind of hard when you're pitching it in a virtual format, but really even in part of our, like when I'm running the membership hires, sometimes you'll get a group, they're brand new nurses. They're just like, oh, we're happy to have a job, we just want our paycheck, and it's really, we can take the time. They're just people, they're just our coworkers to reach out and say, hey, listen, we got metal detectors in the emergency room. We got these really big wins going on. And I almost want to pitch that out to you guys. I'll call on the class. Look at Kathy, we were able to start a float pool at Pottstown. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to use the chat, guys. I know I said that earlier.
I see Lydia.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've seen a lot of membership chairs do also is like use, since you're in your contract negotiations might have been recently, or you might be in it, like using some of the things that you're really proud of that you were able to get. Especially because like those are things that you fought for and like they're in writing. And so that if you're a new hire, you can like look at in the contract and actually, find those. But like oftentimes I feel like the thing that's important to know about the union is that you fight for what you win. Right? So it's helpful to use that as an example of like something that you won, but like what everybody had to do to get there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great. So those are some great examples. And just when you talk about these things that you won, it's important to talk about them in terms of the impact of these. So it's easy for people who are, big union heads to kind of talk about things in a sort of a jargony way, or be like, this is the best wage scale and this or that. And we won, $7,000 in tuition and benefits, whatever it is. But if you can talk about it in a way that talks about how it affects somebody personally, like helping our members pay for their kids' college or having a secure retirement, that's a way that kind of opens somebody's eyes a little more to it. And then, yeah, Julia, talk about.
Sure. So again, really the foundation of my membership new hire orientation is to stay very positive. It's fun. Okay. I say, look, everyone knows nothing gets done in the hospital without our healthcare professionals. No matter what fight's going on, no matter how dirty it's getting with the boss. I always emphasize that we have a seat there at the table. and we've got a mechanism for change. All right. I'm sounding like a broken record. This is our union. PASNAP is open and democratic. I'm like, whatever you want to see happening, you can just jump right in. It's truly the start of a conversation. It's a start of a relationship. And no matter where the members are going into the hospital or your facility, you can always say, hey, listen, you met me here. You can always call me. You can reach out to me. We have a lot of union business, right? There's charges, arbitration, grievances, and those are vital components and tools that we have. I don't bring them up specifically in the new hire orientation unless I get a direct question on that. People's eyes kind of tend to glaze over and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I keep drilling the very simple and the positive. We are strong in our profession and for our patients when we are sticking together. Like, we want our contract because we chose to stand united, period. Oh, sorry there. I'm taking myself off mute preemptively. Running along here. Got the multi-screens going, guys. All right. So shop, got to share some essentials for your shop floor. That's hospital specific, facility specific. I'll drop some of the tidbits from our recent contract win. So just make this part your own. It's not a set format.
Yeah, people are going to want to know where's the wage scale, show them that where that is in the contract, explain how the dues work. That's 1% of gross wages with the monthly, there's an annual cap, but a monthly average. But it just as important as the contract is, again, to make clear that it's a support network. You have mentors, buddies, you have unit reps, people to help the new hires get comfortable with their workplace. It's their venue to make changes. And it's a structure for helping them advance their development as a healthcare professional. So just to be clear about the union always has your back. I think that's the big upshot that you want to make clear. So yeah.
So we're talking about what's going on essentially in people's specific jobs. And then there's also the essential things that PASNAP's working on as a larger union. Out beyond the facilities, beyond the hospitals. And as we know, something can only win on the larger scale. We're not just fighting for the healthcare workers at the hospital, we're fighting to raise the standards across the whole profession. I saw in the chat a reference to staffing ratios, absolutely. So I start talking about the PAC when we're filling out the membership forms. I start talking about our visions as a union and for our professions. Some strategies that have worked for me with the PAC are just getting people really excited about the issues. I'm like, so I'm a nurse, our local is just nurses. And I'm like, what do you want to see for nursing? Like, do you want safe patient ratios? I'm constantly referencing California and their nursing, their statewide ratios. I mean, those are huge wins. I emphasize they did not drop out of a vacuum. It took a lot of pushing politicians, lobbying, and advocating that goes on that big scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, the legislative priorities include things like PASNAP helped win the ban on mandatory overtime in Pennsylvania. And right now, PASNAP is helping to push for a safe staffing bill like they have in California, a Workplace Violence Prevention Act. And we're also pushing on even national issues like the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, which would give unions like ours a lot of tools to increase our membership and get wins for our members, and for Medicare for All. And PAC is the way that we can help win those things. But when you're talking about PAC, it's just important to be clear with everyone that it's nonpartisan and that it's issue-based. It's around those priorities that you all as a membership decide on. It's not one party or another. So that's kind of it on PAC. So then,
I just want to unpack. I just wanted to say that,
Please,
I've been in new member orientations, where everybody signs up for PAC because of kind of, basically the strength of and the passion of kind of whoever is leading the orientation, And then I've been at other orientations where even if they ask, nobody signs up for PAC. So a lot of it is really just about the affect of kind of if you're passionate about PAC, then you're going to get folks on PAC, and if you aren't passionate about PAC, then I'd encourage you to give Steve or Lydia a call so they can convince you otherwise.
Sure. Yeah. And Lydia, I don't know if Lydia's here actually.
Yeah.
You're welcome to add anything if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the, the Patient Safety Act, which is, for everyone here, the Safe Patient Ratios Bill. I mean, we all know how hard this stuff is to fight for in contract negotiations. The Hospital Association fights just as hard with legislators to tell them why we shouldn't get it passed. So I think it's important to tell people, like, they rest assured, the Hospital Association, all the employers in the area give money for their agenda. And if, individually, none of us have enough money to counteract that, but like collectively, we're a force to be reckoned with. And that's why it matters,
That's right. And even just making those basic asks, you'd be surprised. You'll start to pick up at least a few people in a lot of your sessions, and that adds up really quickly. And I see it just seeing the cards come in from different locals. I can definitely tell which are actively asking people and which haven't yet started to do that. And you'd be surprised how many people will do it if you ask. So you started the orientation by making a little bit of a connection with your new hires. You introduced the basic principles of PASNAP. You shared a victory and some key information about their contract and the support system PASNAP offers. And you made it clear that PASNAP fights beyond the workplace. Now it's time to sign everybody up for the union. So Julia reminded me of something that, like, being a good union member is about asking people to do things. And this is the first ask you're making of people. And it can be a fun part of the thing. It's everybody, now it's time to sign up. But you want to get everybody to do it. And this is the form that you probably know.
Yeah, so here at the end, like I said, so I hold the materials so we can have a little conversation, go off and talk about different things. My new hires definitely take at least the basic 30 minutes that were allotted in the contract, and sometimes go a little bit over. So at this point, I'll go around. I've got my red folders with a couple goodies in them, and these forms. So I pass these out, and I am walking around the room, kind of talking to people specifically. And so this initial form, I'm like, "Oh, it's easy, it's straightforward. I don't have too many issues with this. I don't reference fair share unless it's specifically asked about. And I've had, I think, only 3 people sign up for fair share in my year of doing it. And that was just because someone from HR became a nurse and asked about it. But in any event, so this is a great opportunity here. So for me, one of the big challenges was getting the cards kind of into the database. And that was a really daunting task. I'm good at talking to people, talking to my coworkers, can get everyone signed up. And initially we didn't have a very smooth process, especially when we were in COVID and going back to the in-person orientations. So I want to really make it clear that David's been a phenomenal resource to refine and continually work on this process with our local. Is anyone having specific challenges on the transition from paper form into the database and kind of keeping track of your cards that way?
Okay, cool. Well, like Julie said, I'm here for you. And that's one of my goals, is to keep meeting with you all more and setting up processes that work for you, and just keeping in touch with you regularly. So that's basically the end of your orientation. But the hope is that orientation is just the beginning of a way that you're starting to engage new members and bring some of them up the ladder of engagement to become more and more involved union members. So we're going to be this is an aspirational thing that we're going to be working with all the locals on, which is to kind of be a little more systematic about how we do that. So we've got this form to kind of just track, basically, did we have an initial follow-up conversation with the new member? Did we send out a welcome letter? Did they, did we have a second follow-up, whether it's a phone call or just a conversation on the shop floor? It doesn't have to be that involved, but we want to make sure it's happening in a more systematic way. And this is some stuff that, again, I'd like to be helping all the membership chairs out with. But it's, you know, it's a lot of work, right? And it's kind of too much. It's already a lot on one person just to handle orientations and keeping track of the cards. So another goal we have is to build our capacity to do all this stuff. And in short, that just means building a team around you to help you with this work. Our feeling is that it's kind of too much for one person. The more we can develop diverse teams that conduct new member orientations and engage with new members, the better. We want it so that new members can see themselves in positions of union leadership. So you want all kinds of people to be involved in running your new member engagement. So I've talked to several member chairs who kind of come up against a wall where they're like, well, I don't know how to get like other people to feel so that they're comfortable with running these orientations. And that makes sense. What we'd recommend doing is if there's a promising person that you've identified, ask them to come shadow you. So they just kind of watch you do the orientation. They see that it's not, you know, the hardest thing in the world, and then plan for them to run the next orientation, but with you there to provide backup. And that way a person has kind of 2 times to get comfortable with it. You can give them feedback on things they did well or things they can work on at the end of the time when you back them up. Another way though is maybe you don't have anybody in mind who's even ready for that level of an ask. So a lower level ask you can make of people is to be like a union buddy, which means basically just someone you can rely on to have a conversation with a new hire a couple times and to answer the new hires questions about the workplace and about the union, to be a resource they can go to. A lot of the times the unit rep will do this kind of thing, but we want to make sure that it's clear that it doesn't need to be a unit rep, that it can be somebody who has some promise that isn't ready for that level of commitment, but is interested in kind of taking a new hire under their wing. So for all the member chairs here, I really want to encourage you to make a list of 3 or 4 people now in your local that you could, we like to say volunteer, like tell them that they're going to be volunteering to join your membership committee, or if they're not even there yet, just to be like a buddy for the new hires. So now there are some locals that don't yet, that aren't maybe even performing the orientations regularly. So I'm here if you have any questions about what is in your contract. You probably know, but most of our contracts have language about orientation. If they don't, we want to be pushing in our next contract campaigns to get that language. If we have it, it's just a matter of making sure that we are enforcing it. So yeah. So with that, we will just kind of quickly zip. Oh, I see some hands up. I see Peg and Peg, do you want to go for it here?
Sure. Hi, I'm Peg Duffy Lawson from Einstein. I'm the co-president. I joined a few minutes late, so I apologize if I missed intros. I just wanted to say that something that we did at Einstein before Julia took over membership chair, I was doing some of the orientations in the interim, and something that worked a little bit for us was getting some members from the executive board to help out with the orientation sessions. And so what I was able to do was get the list for the whole year for every orientation session from HR. And then I kind of just passed it out to the executive board and said, all right, everybody, you know, who can sign up for, you know, 1 or 2 sessions. So it wound up being pretty much just 3 of us. You know, people weren't necessarily banging down the door to do it, but you know, it did work, and it was helpful to have at least 3 people. And then between the 3 of us, we were able to kind of coordinate a script, and, you know, we were all able to pretty much do the same the same thing each time. So I just wanted to put that out there as a suggestion when you were talking about getting help.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Julia, did you want to say anything about that?
No, we still had Sunday serendipity. You had a question?
It's actually Mary Adamson. I changed it.
Oh, Mary Adams. Okay,
See
hey,
it now?
Mary.
Okay,
Go ahead.
sorry about
Okay.
that. I was the member secretary for a long time at Temple, and it is such an important opportunity to get in front of people, because that is really the initial introduction to the union. And one of the things that we, I love Peg's point about, developing the script, because that is kind of what you do. You just develop your script over time. And one of the things that we did just organically is when the staff rep was talking about the union, he would ask anybody, were you in a union hospital for, blah, blah, blah. And while he's talking, I'm behind his back, writing on the chalkboard, "We are the union." So after he gives his spiel, I say, "Now let me tell you how it really is. These guys just work for us. We are the union. We are the people that make the decisions, and we are the people that fight. We're not a third party person. So you're going to sign a card today, but you're also telling me, yeah, I want to be a part of this, because that's what it is." So I think it was a good thing, and it came pretty naturally. And we had a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so important that people come away from this understanding that, yeah, we are the union, that they are the union. And it's not a third party. Yeah. I saw Kathy mention that we need language in our next contract, because now you're talking during lunch break and you want designated time just like any other speaker. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great thing to fight for. Are you having particular issues with it being during the lunch break, Kathy, that you want to talk about? If you're with us still.
I am, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
I just feel that, they deserve their half-hour lunch break without being interrupted by, and they don't pay as attentively, I feel, as you're talking.
You just ordered
We've always had where we've gone and they've separated the 6 feet. So
you don't have
but
to make
the
a decision
HR person's in there. And the last labor management meeting, I said, could we just have them step out? And their first comment was, "What, do you have secrets?" I'm like, no, but I want to have my time to talk to our union members, because things, you're not going to say management does this, management does that. I mean, sometimes I still do, but I feel like I'm put more constricted to what I could say with them being in the room, and then not having my own time to just talk about it while they're eating lunch. And then they make the comment, well, people complained they didn't get really a lunch break. I'm like, well, that's not my fault. You didn't designate a time other than their lunch break for me to talk.
Totally.
So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think
cool. So Kathy, feel free to weigh back in. I'm just going to mute you now real quick. Yeah, with that, I want to take you through briefly the new member packet that'll be going out to all the locals. You will have like a local specific section. I know that we've been working on with each local that includes like list of unit reps and the elected board of each local. It'll also have a new little membership card, like an actual union card. And on the back of that, people will have their Weingarten rights. So that can be something that, the suggestion we make is not to dwell on that, but it's also, if you were at yesterday's Just Cause thing, it is really important that everybody knows that they should always ask for their union rep. If there's anything they think might lead to discipline. But that's right on the card there, and kind of your Weingarten rights here. It also has a postcard with a welcome from Maureen, this is the front and back, which is a nice little welcome there. And it'll also include a member activity interest form. So, again, this is I know you're collecting a lot of forms and stuff, but this is something that you can use with your local board or with the staff rep or me, just to see if the new hires you're talking to have any particular interest that we can then reach out to them and plug them into specific work. There's also a little bit of information about PAC and our political operations. So a little summary of all of the legislative priorities that we have and a little way that they can immediately make a call, take a little bit of action, which is a cool thing. And that's basically it on that. So we have, Julie and I have our contact information here for anybody who is a member chair or an aspiring member chair. Get in touch with us anytime. But since I know we just kind of did a round of comments and questions, but we'd like to open it back up again for anybody who's had any, it can be very particular dilemmas you have or whatever. I see Nick has his hand up, so go for it, Nick.
Thanks, David. This is really helpful, David and Julia. Thank you for putting this all together. My question has to do with kind of and you mentioned a bit of the sort of the follow-up form, but that's one thing that I'm working with the St. Mary nurses on. I mean, they're actually doing orientations every 2 weeks. So they've had a number of the meetings already, but I'm working with them on how to integrate the unit reps in, because once, newly hired nurses get to their unit, that kind of becomes their world. And I'm curious if any of the other locals have like good advice or experiences about, we've done a thing where we'll like literally just let the unit reps know, hey, there's a couple new hires coming your way, make sure to say hi to them. But we haven't actually like made it much more detailed than that. And I'm wondering if anybody has more sort of advice or experience with kind of continuing during the orientation process.
I can, this is Julia again. So this is something that David and I have talked about, and I'm really glad to hear that you guys are, also want to do that. And quite frankly, it's not, maybe the process isn't there yet. But hopefully between some of what the new hire, like having the actual form will help kind of set in the structure that, here's maybe the list of the unit reps. So one, here's your ask, like, hey, find your unit rep on the unit when you get there. And then two, having the unit rep saying, notifying your unit reps to say, hey, reach out. But Einstein, I think we're hiring around 50 nurses a month. It's really crazy right now. So that is certainly an area that we're working on improvement. Anyone else from other locals either have a good way of going about that or some similar challenges? Because I always like to hear like, hey, listen, this is what's working for us, but this is also a challenge, so we can build up together.
Peg, I'm not sure if that's an old hand that's up or if you wanted to, but feel free, anybody, to just jump in and unmute yourself.
Oh, I think that's an old hand.
Okay,
but,
cool.
I'm never one to not want to speak. So I can say that while I don't have ideas for who could do this, maybe the people on the executive board who don't have as much maybe work to do as others would be able to do follow-up meetings, a month or 6 or 8 weeks after the initial orientation membership intro. I think for us at Einstein, that could be particularly helpful because we have some units that really don't have very active unit reps. And so even our connection to them, sometimes it can take a bit of time to actually get in touch with them. And, they're not always the most in the know about what's going on. So maybe somehow members from the executive board can come up with something together that would work, or have a couple other people on the board, reach back out to the new hires to see, if there are any issues that they've encountered or if they need any help with anything.
And one thing I can say, I don't know if anybody, I don't think Tammy's here from Butler, but I do see at least Sharon here, who's helps rep Brooklyn, but I know both of them have had success with having new member specific events, whether they bunch that in with the like larger meetings that are happening, but to have something to invite like new members specifically to, even if it's a social thing like a dinner or something, I think that's something we want to help all the locals get on board with. And that can be if somebody you think could be a union buddy is like, well, what do I say to the person? You can tell them like, well, just make sure they know, like, come to me if you're having any issues, and ask them like, how's your experience been, getting, starting out here, just engage them a little bit. And then that buddy could also be the person who, invites them to the thing, so that the connection is, deepening like an actual person to person connection. But yeah, other thoughts or on this or other topics from anybody?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, just to reiterate your point, David, about what Tammy does at Butler is really amazing. And, maybe we can do kind of a follow-up to this workshop in a couple of months that has her talking about what she does, because she makes her new hires sit down. They're like a 2-hour history of her local, like going back to the 1970s. And it's really great, so.
Cool.
I think this is just another thing that I've seen some locals do. If you have somebody who like, they are like the party person at your local, like the person who like plans the Christmas party, plans the party, like they might be the person to kind of pull off like a quarterly event for new hires, or every 6 months or something like that. I definitely have seen places where it really works well and places where like it falls flat. And I think it's definitely about making sure that if you have that person where like, hey, maybe they aren't like the best rep, but they bring the party, they're the person who should put that kind of thing together.
Totally.
Or even if they are a great rep, the person who likes to bring the party.
I wasn't a rep. I'm Sharon, by the way, from Temple.
Hi.
I wasn't a rep, but I totally agree with you. There's in some cases, new nurses and even, well-seasoned nurses, or experienced nurses, I should say, they don't really necessarily want to hear about the union and, get a lecture, but I've always gripped them up through social things that were going on. I would engage them in, if whatever was going on the weekend, or I always had like a charity event going on or something that I would engage them in. Also trying to teach the younger nurses how to sign up for their pension benefits, because most of the time they don't even think about that. And it's something that the hospitals don't really encourage. They just give them the information and it ends up, in the bottom of a drawer for 5 years. But I just kind of find that when you do engage them socially and try to teach them things that they don't know, such as their pensions and saving money, that is a longer lasting relationship that you can always come back to, and incorporate maybe asking like, hey, do you think you can help us out with, with certain things that are going on in the union.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. And I see there's something in the chat here. Oh, excellent points, Sharon. Absolutely.
Just me.
So yeah, any final thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas? Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate you all coming to this training, and thank you to Julia for helping me put this together. Um,
And
Yeah.
I'll just jump in here for
Please.
kind of a last note from me. Again, I have been just doing the in-person membership hires for almost coming up on a year, and COVID really did change things. So I've learned so much, and there's still so much to learn. So I know some people get nervous to talk on like a Zoom call or whatever. So please reach out. I really want to hear what's going on, or if you guys, challenges, want to just vent, want to talk about how fun it is to do the membership hires. It's truly, I cannot say it enough. It's one of the most fun parts of being an executive board. And it really gets me jazzed up every morning. Every morning I do them, I'm like, oh, and it's the biggest show of democracy I've ever seen, to have people come out for the strike vote. And it's just, like I said, we've got options. We can build up the tone, build up our power right there from that first conversation. It's a huge opportunity. So awesome. Yeah, it was nice to meet you guys. I would love to see you in person. Yeah, so reach out.
All right. Well, got some time before the next thing. And yeah, thanks again for coming, and enjoy the rest of the House of Delegates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Erin.
Thanks, Julia.
Thanks.
Hi,
Bye.
Mary.
Thank you.
How are you? It's
everybody.
good to see you.
I know, it was so good to see you too.
Aw.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody.